detectors, trapping the truth and your film collectors. Cody and Mitch ain't even real directors, but they still gonna tell you which movie was better. Real Inspectors.
What's up? I'm Mitch.
And I'm Cody.
And we're the Real Inspectors with Shreveport Talks. Today, we're going to talk about Kingsman, the Golden Circle.
We're from the Kingsman tailor shop in London. Maybe you've heard of us?
Fuck yeah.
Manners maketh man.
Do you know what that means? Well, this movie tells you all about that. I guess, kind of. So, in general, what's your, overarching thoughts on the movie?
Well, I'm just going to go ahead and get this out of the way. I think the first movie is a superior movie. So I just want to say that first because it's going to come out in some of my bias when I speak about this film. But that doesn't detract from everything that I liked about this movie because I really think that they listened to the fans. I think they know what the fans liked about the first film and they try to give us even more of that. So I definitely want to see more Kingsman. I want to see a Kingsman 3. I'm not complaining about this film at all when I say that. I'm just saying that the first one has this charm for me, so I'm going to get that out of the way. What I enjoyed about the film was that, like I was saying, that there are even more action scenes that we like. The soundtrack was awesome. I love the beginning of the film with the Prince song. That I'm a huge Prince fan, so I thought the choreography to that whole fight scene was amazing. And everything we liked about the church scene from the first movie, I feel like was a little bit revved up here because they all knew we loved that one scene from the first movie, so they tried to give us a little bit more of that in the style with the fight scenes, and I really enjoyed it. I really enjoyed seeing the American version of Kingsman, the Statesman. That was great. I liked actually all the Big Lebowski references, and I liked Elton John. So there's a lot of stuff in this movie for movie fans to enjoy, for fans of the first one, even if you're not. I feel like this is one of those sequels that you can walk into having not seen the first one and still enjoy it, even though you may be confused by a couple things. Yeah. It still does stand on its own as a standalone story that's pretty good. And whenever a sequel can do that, that means it's a good film. Yeah. So, what were your initial thoughts on that?
At the very beginning of the movie, I very much so enjoyed it. It starts off with just action going on. And as the movie progresses, for me, it seemed like a lot of those action scenes became kind of a crutch for it because it knew that people loved all the action. And it seemed like that's what the entire movie was based around for the most part. Now, I very much so enjoyed the movie. Matthew Vaughn's one of my favorite directors, and Miller is one of my favorite comic writers. So I was very excited to see this movie. If I can, I will probably see this movie again because it is an exciting movie. You come out like blood pumping and stuff.
I feel like any problems like that you were mentioning with it aren't necessarily the problems of the film. It's just like personal preference things. So I don't think there are any huge complaints with this movie. Like things that stand out to me that's like I absolutely can't stand that, like nothing like that, just like a personal preference level where I think the first one is slightly above. But if you're a fan of Kingsman, you definitely have to see this movie. If you're a fan of action movies, you have to see this movie because it's a great action film. And it's one of those movies like the first one that is funny, it's a great time, it's a crowd pleaser. I would actually say maybe even a little bit less controversial than the first one. So I feel like anybody can pretty much enjoy this movie if you like zany, crazy action and comedy.
Now, one of the things going back to the action scenes, the way that they're shot, I really enjoy.
The choreography is amazing.
Yeah. It seems like it almost has that feel of all being one shot, but still it's multiple takes. So it's not exactly like the big church scene from the first movie, but it has that feel. They
have a lot of long takes, though.
Yeah.
Which I really enjoy in the action scenes because it takes you through that perspective and just twists and turns, and it's like you're on a ride. So, like I said, I think the first scene in the movie is the best example of that. Maybe not. I also like the scene closer to the end with the umbrella and the suitcase gun. That was awesome. Some characters that I didn't expect to return actually returned from the first one as well. Like some of the Kingsman dropouts that didn't make it from the first movie ended up being characters in this film. And a couple of the things with Eggsy's life kind of caught me by surprise, though. His whole love story, I feel like, was kind of a typical love story we've seen before. I could have done without all that stuff, but it's not really something that's going to make me complain about it. Because, I mean, I've seen it a lot in films, and it's like you were saying, it is a spy movie, so you expect him to be sort of this James Bond type character. And then you constantly are reminded that, oh, you know, he's about to, you know, he's trying to get married, and he's really, you know. So, I mean, that I've seen it in Valerian as well last time.
Yeah.
A similar thing. But this one, I felt like was well aware of itself. Like the first movie we were talking about is very meta. This one is also meta. And I think these movies are aware enough of themselves to take some of those tropes and really expand on them, because people know they're coming, and that's what actually makes these movies a little bit more original, is because they know that they're putting tropes in the film, and they put a little twist on it.
Well, we have to start off at the very top. Taron Egerton, who plays Eggsy, who in this movie he does great. He has a lot more. His acting chops, you can tell, have progressed since the first movie, because the first movie I think was like his first or second.
I'm not sure about that.
Fairly early on in his career.
He's more refined in this film.
Yeah.
Because he's been a Kingsman for a little bit longer now.
Yeah.
In the first one, when we meet him, he's just a regular guy, kind of down on his luck. And you know the story. So in this one, he's been a Kingsman for a little bit. He's more refined. He's almost like a different character than he was in the first one, because he has all that experience of being a Kingsman and what that means, and the responsibilities of that. So when we meet Eggsy, he's a little bit further off and a little bit more mature, I feel like, than in the first film. Although I do really like his charm in the first film when he's unrefined and he's learning all that stuff too. So obviously, spoilers, but someone returns in this film, which you already know if you've seen the trailer, so it's really not that big of a spoiler.
Yeah.
So they do return with the sort of Jedi Padawan relationship there. Except this time he's kind of got a screw loose.
Yeah, it's a little twisted. Colin Firth returns in this movie.
Always like seeing him.
Yeah. And in this movie, it's in a way the master becomes the apprentice, because he kind of has to relearn some things, and so Eggsy's there to kind of help him along that path. And then one of the other actors that I in the trailers, I never realized he was in this until we saw the movie, and I was like, that's the Red Viper. What's his name? Pedro.
Well, he was in Game of Thrones. And he played the Red Viper. And in this one, he plays Whiskey, correct?
Correct.
I enjoyed him. He was pretty funny. He wasn't cracking jokes so much as like Channing Tatum's character, but just him interacting with the Kingsman was pretty funny, because he was the closest. His character was the closest to like the most refined. I feel like of the statesmen. Whereas Channing Tatum, and let's go ahead and talk about some of the new faces in this movie. I feel like some of them didn't get enough screen time, from Channing Tatum, Halle Berry, and of course Jeff Bridges. I could have used a little bit more screen time from them, especially from Channing Tatum's character, who I thought was hilarious. Could have been used a little bit more. They basically chose to put him on ice for a huge part of this. Literally, for a huge part of this film. So I feel like, I'm going to say this about Golden Circle. It had a huge opening, a great first act, and a pretty good second act. That's what I'm going to say about this movie, because it starts strong. It's got a great opening, but I feel like all the plot points that they set up, they kind of lost the ball a little bit on a few things, because I was seeing places that they could have gone that would have been a little bit more satisfying for a wrap up for me. That didn't happen. So the least satisfying about the part about this movie is probably just close towards the ending and how they wrap everything up, and some opportunities that I wish I would have taken.
Yeah, Julianne Moore in it, she's great throughout the entire movie, and then for her at the end, it's just like
kind of anticlimactic. Yeah, a little bit anticlimactic for how much they build up her character, because she is really great in this movie as she's pulling the strings, and she's got this huge conspiracy going on, setting up, putting pieces in place, and then she just kind of at the end. Yeah. So,
and then the dark horse of this movie for me has got to be Elton John. I didn't know Elton John was going to be in this.
Me neither.
And he is like he's the whole movie for me. Like, he's my favorite character in this, just because he's constantly making jokes, and then it's Elton John.
Yeah, that was great to me. The first movie had some cameos in there, like Mark Hamill, some other people that we're familiar with. Of course, Samuel L. Jackson was in it. This one, we already knew Channing Tatum, Jeff Bridges, Halle Berry was going to be in it. We didn't get enough of them. But what I was surprised how much of Elton John we got. Like, it wasn't just like a 2-minute cameo. There was plenty of Elton John to go around in this movie. I would say almost just as much screen time as probably Channing Tatum.
yeah, if not more.
Yeah. He was hilarious, and it really felt like Elton John was having a fun time making this movie, because this movie is so British. Everything about it is so British, and that's one of the reasons that I love it, and is just so perfect to have Elton John in there.
And it's like the good guys are very British, but the Americans are very...
Yeah, cowboys.
Yeah.
It's all. I like the cowboy technology too, like the whips and how everything has to do with cowboy stuff is kind of cool. It's over the top, but if you expect anything less from Kingsman, like, why are you there?
Mm-hmm. And then, of course, like, you have those little allegories to like the way society is today. Of course, in there, like the president, I didn't expect the way that they were going to take it, but I guess I'm not surprised at the same time.
One thing I will say about both of these films that I like is it challenges your perception of good and evil. Especially the millennial generation, people who will be seeing these films, people who enjoy these types of movies, including myself. When I saw the first one, Samuel L. Jackson's character, for instance, he uses something like climate change to rally people behind a sinister plot. So while climate change awareness is something that I feel is very important, this movie kind of flips it on its head as like, what if somebody used that in a negative way and fooled a bunch of people en masse? And this one is no less different. There's a theme of drug use in the film, and they really tie in the plot of the villain to challenge, I feel, the viewers and the young viewers to put themselves in a different situation and say, wow, that's kind of creepy, that could happen to me. You know? It doesn't take an easy route, and that's what I've liked about the films, is that everybody seems to like these movies, but they don't really take an easy route. They tackle some complicated issues, and they end up making it into something that most people enjoy. So I think Kingsman Golden Circle is a winner. So
this movie is brought to us by two of like my favorite, like I said before, one of my favorite directors. He's like in my top 5, and one of my favorite comic writers. So you got Mark Miller, who wrote the comic, who's written Kick-Ass, Superior, Nemesis, Wanted. He wrote for Fantastic Four, the Ultimate Fantastic Four, which was a very different version of them, as well as he wrote for Old Man Logan and the Civil War. So he's had a lot of his movies a lot of his comics become movies.
Right. And when I saw the first Kingsman movie, it kind of took me by surprise because I didn't know it was written by the same guy who did Kick-Ass. So I was just blown away by it. And when Kingsman 2, I saw the trailers, I was like, I have to go see that because it's just such a fun time. Kick-Ass and Kick-Ass 2, I love those movies. I love the Kick-Ass series. I love the Kingsman series. Wanted, and that movie version wasn't exactly the same as the comic. Not a huge fan of that, but the comic, definitely. Mark Miller is a legend.
Yeah.
So I enjoy anything that he writes. And now Matthew Vaughn, the director, he also directed the Kick-Ass film as well. So he has a working relationship with Mark Miller.
Correct.
Yeah. He also directed X-Men First Class, which is, I feel like, one of the better X-Men films.
And then he also wrote Days of Futures Past, and was just kind of like he's kind of on set to kind of help Bryan Singer, who...
at that point, the plot was so convoluted.
Yeah. And then he was producer on Kick-Ass 2, but he was still very much so there helping with the writing process and all that. But he also did Stardust, which has a couple other comic book actors in as well, because you got Daredevil, it's got Superman... it's got Catwoman.
Okay, yeah, Michelle Pfeiffer.
And speaking about Superman, Matthew Vaughn, as of right now, is apparently set to direct Man of Steel 2 with Henry Cavill.
Right, which I feel is a pretty bold, interesting choice there. I'm a huge fan of Matthew Vaughn. I like everything he's done, but when I think Kick-Ass and Kingsman, I don't automatically think Superman.
Yeah, well, they're definitely trying to make it a lighter feel, because, I mean, when you think Kick-Ass, you don't think of X-Men First Class.
That is true.
Because he's kind of got like an elegant way of showing these heroes in like a light fashion, but still being serious at the same time.
Yeah, he has a wide range. I'm actually really excited to see what he's going to do with the Superman film, and how the new Justice League movie will be influenced. Well, how his film will be influenced by the Justice League movie that's coming out soon as well. And we've got that to look forward to this year, actually. So.
And then speaking of someone in the Justice League,
Wonder Woman.
Correct.
Which also came out on Blu-ray last week.
The gods made the Amazons to restore peace to the world. And it's what I'm going to do.
Well, that's neat.
So that was Wonder Woman. I enjoyed it. Cody, what did you feel about Wonder Woman?
Wonder Woman, it's got to be one of my top superhero movies. I've watched it several times. I've watched it several times at this point. Like, since it's been out, I've rewatched it, I think, twice now. Well, I guess 1.5. I didn't get to finish it the second time I watched it, but I went and saw it in theaters 3 times.
Okay.
So
big fan.
Yeah, I enjoy this movie.
So you definitely plan on picking this up on Blu-ray at some point. Okay. Wonder Woman, I thought was great. I actually don't hate me on this, but I feel like it was a little bit hyped up for what it actually was. Because one of the things I noticed about Wonder Woman is its similarities to the first Captain America film.
Yeah.
And I feel like something that DC has been doing recently in trying to catch up with Marvel and this already established Marvel Cinematic Universe is really hurry up their superhero stories to kind of make a similar thing. And I really noticed it with Wonder Woman, more so than some of the other films, too, because of the similarities with the first Captain America movie. Now, to talk about the things that I liked about the movie, I thought it was a really fresh take for the DC films because it felt like a little bit of that heavy tone was lifted a little bit and we could jump into this different world in a different time period where we didn't have to worry about all the other stuff going on just yet. Sit back and relax and watch Wonder Woman's story unfold. And it is very much an origin story, but it's not done in a way that bored me or I felt was trite because we've seen a lot of superhero origin story movies, and I feel like in this way that the movie succeeded in telling a good origin story that wasn't boring and kept you interested. Yeah,
for me, this movie they definitely lighten it up a little bit, but they still keep the serious factor to it. I guess maybe it's a mental thing or something, but you mentioned that it does have a lot of similarities to the first Captain America movie. And first Captain America movie, I really enjoyed. Like, I'm not a big Captain America fan in the comics, but his movies have always been I prefer his movies.
Okay.
And so this one, it takes us back to World War I, which is a story that we don't get to hear a whole lot.
True.
And I guess I just enjoyed seeing, like, a different time period than what we normally see, because everyone goes back to World War II. So this one gave us a different time. It gave us a character who isn't very fleshed out a whole lot. Like, when someone says Wonder Woman, you can't come up with, I guess, more than 5 things. Like, if I ask you who Wonder Woman's top 5 villains are, probably can't name them.
No clue.
And so, for me, it was nice to see this character who I didn't really read a whole lot. I read some of the George Perez comics, but I never got real big into, so it's nice to see that again, because Captain America, again, I wasn't super big into, but Wonder Woman has definitely caught my eye, just as Captain America's caught my eye.
Yeah. One thing Wonder Woman proves is that definitely the girls can play with the boys. She was better. This film, I feel, was better than DC has been going with some of their other films. I will say that, and I think Wonder Woman really succeeded in giving us a strong female character that really had enough screen time. I feel like in certain ways it could have been taken to a different level, but for what it was, I really enjoyed it, and I think that I'm excited to see the next Wonder Woman incarnations, and I'm excited to see her interact with the Justice League now, because my favorite sequence of this movie was the No Man's Land sequence.
Yeah.
And just the fact that I heard that the filmmakers try to get, or the production studio, try to get Patty Jenkins to take that scene out of the movie just makes me want them to make sure that she's signed on for the other films, which I heard
she's already signed on.
She is, okay.
And they figured out her payment for the next one because she didn't sign a contract for later movies, and so she got to say how much she wanted to get paid on this next one, which I think is pretty cool.
That is pretty cool. So I think she did a really good job with this film, and she also directed Monster, which is an older Academy Award-winning film, and she hasn't really done much work since then. So I'm really hoping after Wonder Woman that her career blows up and that she can direct a lot of other stuff, because she's a great director and a director of Academy Award-winning film too, and a director of one of DC's best movies so far.
And then we can't just talk about the director; we also got to talk about the star, Gal Gadot or Gal Gadot. I've heard it said both ways. But she's just so lovable in this. And then all of her interviews she's done afterwards with Chris and just by herself or with Patty, she's so hilarious. And then in this, she's just adorable throughout the entire movie. It's like she's just badass, but at the same time, like it's like she's Wonder Woman.
Yeah, well, she's badass, but she's also vulnerable because she's in a time and place that she doesn't understand. So she's constantly having to learn about the place where she's at and discover as she's trying to complete this task, which is an interesting... it makes for an interesting film.
Yeah, and so I actually look forward to seeing how she's going to do in Justice League, because, I mean, in this movie, she's kind of like a fish out of water. At this point, she's been around longer than any of the other guys.
Right.
So... at the end of the day, she should know more about the world than they do.
Yeah, I'm expecting her, Wonder Woman in Justice League, to be a more refined character, more at ease with the technology and stuff that surrounds her. Because I feel like she was already that way in the Batman Superman movie. So I'm excited to see more of her than I did in Batman Superman and be a stronger character in Justice League. Because now that Superman is kind of on ice for now, it's mainly going to be her and Bruce, I feel like, bringing the Justice League together.
Well, I mean, we know Superman's coming back in Justice League.
We all know that. But
I mean, Henry Cavill himself keeps posting stuff of him in the suit.
We all know.
Yeah.
We all know that Superman's not really dead. I mean, come on.
Even though Jason Momoa keeps yelling that he's dead, he's not dead.
Yeah. So, if you were to rate Kingsman on a scale from 1 to 10, the Golden Circle, what would you give it?
See, I very much so enjoyed the movie, but it fell flat on a few things, so I'd have to give it a 7.
7. I give it an 8. I enjoyed it. I thought it was a fun time. I thought the things that I did complain about and share with you were minimal in compared to the scale of the film. And, I mean, I enjoyed it. So I'll have to give it an 8.
Now, Wonder Woman, what would you give that?
I'm going to give that a 7.
You give that a 7? See, I gotta give that one like an 8.5, maybe a 9, because I very much so enjoyed it. But I also enjoy a lot of the DC movies. I enjoy Snyder's directing style, so... that could be the reason why.
Well, we had a good time at the movies, and we're going to be seeing more movies soon. We'll catch you next time on Real Inspectors.
Real inspectors, bullshit detectors, trapping the truth and your film collectors. Cody and Mitch ain't even real directors, but they still gonna tell you which movie was better.